Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, June 30th, 2024, and today we are going to be talking about President Biden and his re-election campaign and the 2024 presidential election. Now, since Thursday's debate, President Biden's campaign has raised more than $33 million. Since his debate against Donald Trump, a huge cash haul, something that is entirely unexpected following what was largely perceived as a disappointing, if not abysmal performance for the incumbent president in last Thursday's debate. Now, in our conversations in the past 2 days, we've talked about how Donald Trump won the first debate, and now many Democrats are questioning, is Joe Biden the right candidate for re-election this time around? Is it time to replace him with somebody like Vice President Harris, or Governor Gretchen Whitmer, or Governor Josh Shapiro, or one of the names that have been mentioned across this wide array of Democrats that could potentially replace President Biden at the top of the ticket? But this video is to demystify the idea that President Biden has somehow entirely lost this presidential election. Are things looking far worse than they were just a few days ago? The answer is probably. But when you take a look at what we've been working with and what we have seen now post-debate, whether it's 4 new post-debate polls, whether it's the fundraising numbers that we are seeing here, whether it's the Democratic Party's rallying call behind President Biden, there is still a very significant shot. Not the favorite, because I think if the election was held today, President Trump would win, but still a significant shot that President Biden does win re-election. And I know that might be a more of a controversial opinion at this point. I think I've seen a lot of you guys talk about how, this race should be dubbed entirely over. But I want us to shift away from that narrative because it is actually just consequently false. I think that this election is one that is still going to be excessively close. What that means is that it's going to come down to potentially just one vote in a few precincts that is going to make all the difference in the presidential election. Regardless of who wins, no candidate is going to trounce the other. That's not how this works, and that's simply not how this election, no matter how much Republicans believe that this election might be wrapped up for Donald Trump, just not how this electorate has responded to the debate and responded to the overall election itself. What I want to ground us before we look into this is that 51 million people tuned into the presidential debate. And while I absolutely agree that it did get further and more widespread through social media and live streams and news coverage, those things all exist. But they have existed in previous debates. And I'm not trying to make some type of idea that nobody watched this debate. It mattered, and it was absolutely something that was very viewed very poorly for the incumbent president. But it wasn't this make-or-break moment that has all of a sudden made Joe Biden somehow unelectable this coming November. And so I want you to walk with me. If you disagree with my point, I encourage you to watch this video. If you still disagree with me, I entirely, recognize that not everyone is going to agree with me by the end of this, but I really, really, really encourage you to go ahead and watch this in full. Put me on 2x speed if you want to, regardless of how you get through it. I'd like you to walk through with me because I think there is certainly some arguments here to be made that President Biden, and I think many Democrats have sort of reemphasized this over the past couple of days, many independent journalists too have really emphasized that President Biden, while may be at a very low point in his presidential campaign, 4.5 months out, is not at a point of no return. And the amount of fundraising at baseline is indicative of that. People don't throw money towards losing candidates easily. It is very, very rare that people do actually have this rallying call behind presidents or Senate candidates or House candidates if everybody assumes that they simply aren't going to win. And so at baseline, this $33 million is, a re-upping of confidence that we've seen from many grassroots donors. 26 million out of this 33 million that has been fundraised by the Biden campaign has come from grassroots donors. What that means are just the average person out there who's donating $5, $10, who watched that debate and might have said, Biden actually needs more help than what I otherwise thought. Maybe Biden needs more money in order to win this campaign. This race is one that is going to be won by just the narrowest of margins. And already, we are seeing Joe Biden out-fundraise Donald Trump in the direct moments after the debate. In the past 3 days since this debate, again, Joe Biden has raised $33 million. The number, I believe, updated at the end of today was around $40 million. Just an excessive amount of cash is being influxed right into the Biden campaign at a time where arguably they need it the most. Now, Biden and his team says that they are going to reset this campaign, a move here that I think is arguably quite smart. I talked about it in today's video, but pretty much can be summarized in 4 main points here. They're going to increase campaign travel and media appearances. They're emphasizing his underdog status, acknowledging his age, but turning it into experience, and contrasting his values with Trump and his perceived vanity and vindictiveness. That is what we've seen from the Trump campaign in terms of public perception. People don't view Donald Trump any more positively because they view Joe Biden more negatively. That always has to be kept in mind. And so this anti-Trump sentiment still permeates, still exists, and that's a big reason that President Biden should simply not be counted out. It also comes at a point where the Biden campaign has acknowledged that this was not the way to go about a debate. The 1 week long preparation clearly didn't work. The, building up this momentum around the debate clearly did not do what they wanted it to do. And so Joe Biden and his campaign has reflected and recognized, so it seems, and I'm obviously not in those rooms, but so it seems Joe Biden and his family, when they went to Camp David and they had a conversation, conceded that this debate didn't go as well as they wanted to, conceded in, argument that they lost this debate. And so Democrats are sticking by him. This idea that there's going to be a shakeup, that there's going to be some type of reset in the way Biden interacts with the public, with the media, with voters, with Republicans, is all part of this longer game strategy of changing the way Biden is perceived between now and the election. And that's a good thing for national Democrats. And again, another reason why he stands to be in a better position than what we otherwise might think. I also have to constantly remind myself of where we were in 2016 and arguably even 2012. In the first presidential debate in 2012, just 25% of viewers said that Barack Obama won the first debate, compared to 67% that said Mitt Romney won the debate. In 2016, 62% of respondents said that Hillary Clinton won the first debate, while just 27% said Donald Trump won the first debate. In both of those instances, the candidates who won this first debate by trouncing margins, in the same way Donald Trump's one was 67-33. Biden performed better than Trump in 2016, according to the rapid response. Biden performed better than Obama in 2012, according to the rapid response. And while I don't necessarily think that these elections are one-to-one directly comparable, I do think there's some truth in the fact that presidential debates might matter in the moment, but we are 4.5 months out in time for the election. I think we are also getting to a point too. We're looking back at the 2020 presidential election. No matter how much the Republican Party believes that debate was cataclysmic to the Biden campaign, in no reality do they look at this election and say that they have 2024 locked up. Because Joe Biden didn't just win by a little. Yes, the margins mattered in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, 5 states that Biden flipped from 2016. It really mattered in Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona. But altogether, these are states that pretty much all moved towards Biden, shifted quite significantly to the left. Other states that did the same: Colorado, which was a 14-point state for President Biden. Virginia and Minnesota, 7 points in Minnesota, 10 points in Virginia. New Hampshire, 7 points in New Hampshire. Biden did well in all of these states that Biden would need to lose quite significantly in terms of overall support in order to lose these states on the presidential level. And while these swing states absolutely were very narrow, 3 states were won by less than 1%, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia, Donald Trump needs to build out his electorate. And he can't do so given some of the margins from back in 2020 without a massive shift in support. Well, what are we seeing on the presidential margin? Honestly, not that much. Ledger released a poll showing Trump ahead by 7 points, but I talked about this in my video earlier on today, and I'm not trying to cherry pick polls. But what I am going to say is that Ledger is a C- rated pollster who does not have a strong track record whatsoever. So I'm going to throw that one out. But I'm going to substitute it with a new poll from Atlas Research, which did a poll with CNN that found Trump ahead by 5. So replace that with Trump ahead by 5, the rest Biden +1, Trump +3, Trump +2. Movement here, absolutely. But Trump already led on the national average by 1.5% on Real Clear Politics, by roughly a point on 538. Biden was starting to lose from where he was a week ago, already going into this debate. And things have certainly gotten better for Donald Trump. But in order for me to declare the Biden campaign said and done for, I was expecting some polls out there that showed Trump ahead by 10. A consistent Trump +6, Trump +7, Trump +8, and you might tell me, okay, that's unrealistic. Well, guess what we saw in 2020? All those polls said Biden was ahead by 6, 7, 8 points. We didn't see any major publications calling for President Trump to be replaced as the top ticket nominee. Why? Because we knew that while it may be showing that, this doesn't reflect exactly what swing state voters are saying. Remember back in 2022, when we saw a lot of these high-level polls telling us that Republicans were going to dominate in the polls. All these pundits had predicted, without a doubt, Republicans were going to trounce Democrats in the House. They were going to easily win back Senate control. They were going to flip all the Democratic governorships. Happened barely, didn't happen, and certainly didn't happen. In the House elections, Republicans were predicted to get 230 seats according to 538. Republicans had an 84% chance at winning House control. 230 reduced down to 222. Keep in mind 538 is the same network that right now is predicting Joe Biden the favorite to win the White House. Remember the 2022 Senate elections. All those op-eds about how John Fetterman, the Democratic nominee for Senate after he was in a stroke and did no public performances until his debate, which was significantly worse than President Biden's campaign, that all these people were watching the debate. The Dr. Oz campaign took ad after ad after ad after ad from that debate and used it and weaponized it in Pennsylvania. And Democrats said, we're not winning Pennsylvania. 538 said that Dr. Oz, yes, the celebrity doctor, was going to be the next senator from the state of Pennsylvania. Well, not only did that not happen, we saw a 6-point swing from what 538 had predicted. Dr. Oz was supposed to win by a point. John Fetterman won by 5. But he was someone who did very minimal campaign performances after his stroke, had very much a lackluster debate. I mean, you thought President Biden's was bad. If you watch that debate, you're going to think that one was significantly better in comparison. Point being here, that debates don't mean everything. And all the sensationalism around candidates often comes from a very high-level bubble. Because the average voter did not watch that presidential debate. The average American did not watch that presidential debate. Pre-debate polling showed that just 34% of America even knew the debate was happening. Just 28% actually decided to tune in. That's a problem for the Trump campaign, but also, I'm not writing this off, that Biden didn't do well. Biden did not do well, right? That is something that is absolutely true. By the metrics, by the pundits, no matter how you cut it, that's factual. But that isn't to say that it means that this campaign is somehow entirely blown up and completely thrown over. We have seen this before, and I really want to hammer this in too, that sometimes underestimating candidates and believing that a race is already over is exactly what causes a party that might be the favorite right now, and in this case, that would be Donald Trump, to lose an eventual election. Because that is how you lose elections. That's what reminds me of what happened in 2016. This point here that needs to be reiterated, that Donald Trump lost the 2016 debates, all 3 of them. Lost the 2016 debates, yet won the presidency. There have been many times where candidates have lost the first debate and ended up winning the presidency. Because debates aren't as impactful as we think. Hillary Clinton again trounced Trump by the same exact margin. I kid you not. Same exact margin, identical. From the 2024 debate of Trump over Biden, of Clinton over Trump. These things may be indicators of some sentiments, but are far often removed from what the average voter is considering when they get to the ballot box this coming November. Biden will not be replaced on the top of the ticket. He will be the Democratic nominee for president. But they have learned from this moment. They're resetting from this moment. They are now moving out with a different style of campaign and strategy that may be beneficial for the Biden campaign. And I do believe, even if he is not the favorite today, and I don't want this, I know there's going to be a comment saying that, I'm saying that Biden's going to steamroll this election. Absolutely not. I think Trump wins the election if it was held today. But with that being said, it by no means is telling us that come November, Biden has a 0% chance of victory or a 5% chance of victory. He at least has a 30 to 40% chance of winning this November. 538 also says that Biden has a 50% chance of winning this election, and that's including all these recent polls here. Ledger, Trump +7. Atlas Intel, Trump +6. Survey USA, Trump +2. Data for Progress, Trump +3. Patriot Polling, which 1-star rated pollster, moving on, Trump +3. They're considering all of this, and yet still, Biden is the favorite. Look at these numbers, and look at the forecasts beyond what is being sensationalized in the media. Because what I'm going to say, I think should ring throughout this election. That not everyone in the mainstream media is going to get this right. And far often, we are in this bubble amongst people who watch elections a little too closely to actually be in touch with what is being said at the average dinner table. Do voters believe that President Biden might be too old to be the Democratic nominee for president? The polling suggests that voters agree. Do they also agree on the end of Donald Trump? Partially, but not to the same extent. That will be an issue the Biden campaign has to combat. But this debate by no means did in the Biden campaign for good. And I think that is going to be a huge problem for the Trump campaign if they navigate under the assumption that there is no pathway forward for the incumbent president. This election has reminded me a lot of 2016. A huge, large lead in polls in all the swing states from one dominating candidate In this case, Donald Trump, then it was Hillary Clinton, who won the first debate, who has been doing very well in terms of media coverage and criticisms of the incumbent or the oppositional candidate, and yet going into the election doesn't fare as strong of a chance of winning as we otherwise might think if we took into account all of these favorable things happening for that candidate. Donald Trump, in some way too, is capturing in the essence of the overconfidence we have seen from the Clinton campaign in 2016. Again, all of these top Republican officials and surrogates want Joe Biden to be the nominee because they think he's doomed to fail. They believe there is no pathway forward for President Biden. But there will be, and we will see it. I stand here to tell you because I believe that this is just fundamentally true. That President Biden has a far higher chance of victory than what a lot of other people are trying to say. And I can guarantee you, should he be this nominee, which it looks like all the Democrats are rallying around him, it looks like he doesn't want to remove himself from the race, so it doesn't look like that's going to be happening. He will be in a very strong chance this coming November, maybe not the immediate favorite. Maybe in a 50-49 scenario like this one, that is entirely possible. But to write him off from right now is naive. I think there's far more that matters for voters in this election, and I think they are going to be much more, in touch and much more forthcoming with who they are supporting as we get closer to the election. Being this far out, 4.5 months, still roughly 10% of the electorate consistently in polls is undecided at this point. There is time to sway voters. And while President Biden may end up losing this election, it won't be by these epic proportions or a 2008-style landslide victory for Donald Trump. It will be narrow, a victory or a loss. And we will see that this November. And so all this questioning and all this consideration, I think, right now comes at a point where Biden will still be the Democratic nominee for president. It looks like he's not going to be, replaced. It looks like they are taking this debate loss to heart, though. Biden himself, many other people, his family, and the campaign is fundraising on it, using this as a strategy to rally around Democrats and give them sort of like an oh shit moment, that this election is in a very important point where Biden could genuinely lose, despite what many Democrats thought prior to this debate. And it's a rallying call. It brings them in. It makes them more enthusiastic about entering into this race because the threat has become that much more real. It may not have been the intention, and certainly not what the Biden campaign wanted to do on the Thursday debate stage. But I wouldn't write them off yet. I think there's a lot of time for this candidacy and Joe Biden himself to recover, and I'm telling you because I believe this to be true. Mark my words, this coming November, the race will be just as close as it is today, if not closer, because this is a race that will be decided down to the wire. Every single state, every single dollar, every single organizer, every single part of this race over the next 4.5 months will matter because this is a close race. Nobody is going to win it by a landslide, and it will come down to every single thing. Mark my words. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the top left of the screen, there's a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. At the top right of your screen is a video that you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2024 presidential election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.